Moines Park and Recreation Board meeting for October 22nd. Please come to order. Rebecca, will you please read the roll?
Nolan.
Here.
Ogle.
Here.
Clubb.
Here.
Acto.
Here.
Keeney Vanderhaar.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Cahill.
Here.
Pasek.
Here.
Ganza. Here. Scavo.
Here.
Thornton.
Here.
Feltner. Here. Rogers.
Here.
Boson.
Here. Good, thank you. We have a nice quorum. And since we have two brand new people for their first evenings, I'd like to introduce Jeff Clubb first. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Oh, what to know? I teach at Dowling Catholic High School. Been in education just for 5 years now. New to the Des Moines area, only 8 years. Lived in Tempe for 20 years, but grew up in Iowa, southeastern Iowa. And have kind of been involved with all things Des Moines and state since I moved back. Looking forward
Welcome.
to serving the board. Thank you.
And Connie Boson is our school board representative. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more.
Grew up in Des Moines, moved to the Des Moines area when my dad took the job at the Iowa State Fairgrounds, so I lived on a very big park in the city. Then went to East High, graduated, worked at Yonkers for a long time. Now I'm working for Polk County in their purchasing area. And in my spare time, I do school board. And I've been a school board member for 10 years, and I just got reelected to my 4th term.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And we've always worked with the park department too on our pass and play program, so I'm excited to be here.
Good. We're excited to have you here. Let's take a look at the agenda for this evening. Are there any additions or corrections or changes to the agenda? If hearing none, may I have a motion for approval?
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Let's take a look at the minutes from the past meeting of September 24th. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
I'll move.
A second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll move on to the director's report.
Well, thank you. First, we're going to have just a recognition of Rebuilding Together. They are, quite frankly, a critical partner of ours in these tough economic times. Mel Meredith and Kim Hansen have been there for us through many park improvements, but they come kind of ancillary to what they're trying to do in the neighborhoods. I want to thank them, and Kim Hansen's here today. I'll point her out. She's sitting in the front row right there. You'd wave. They come and they understand that when they improve neighborhoods, it's not just improving the infrastructure of somebody's house, but it's improving the park. They've upgraded several parks in the last 3 years. They just did another great project at Columbus Park. They came in, they did some things last year. This year they added the new playground for us at literally very little cost to the city. Almost 99% was their cost. I want to thank you, Kim, for all that you do and understanding what important role parks plays in the neighborhoods too. So we want to play you a little video of their event that Ron Ward, our parks manager, managed this week. And then when we're done, if Kim, you'd like to say anything, we'd love to have you say a few words. And again, on behalf of my office, thank you for all you do. And those that serve on the Friends group, the Des Moines Friends of the Parks, Kim's on that board member. She's a board member on that group as well. So she wears a lot of hats for the city, and she's always looking to give back to our community. So again, thank you.
And if you haven't seen this park yet, after the video, I know you'll want to, but go by and take a look at it. They did some just spectacular work. Rain gardens and all sorts of wonderful improvements.
Ron, would you like to play the video for us?
Sure.
I don't have the controls over here.
Chair Nolan and members of the Des Moines Park and Recreation Board, Ron Ward, Park Manager. As Ben said, besides the playground, which ended up being about a $50,000 donation, they also got Polk County to help out. Polk County Public Works did the site prep and did the concrete border for the playground. And then there was, about 200 Meredith employees there for the day on October 3rd for the work day. Installed the whole playground. They also did the rain garden, planted the rain garden for the splash pad. They had some plants left over. They did some more landscaping at the bocce ball courts. And they painted the small picnic shelter right there by the splash pad, besides working in the neighborhood on, I think, 5 or 6 houses. Yeah, so this video goes real quick. It's time-lapsed of the playground. When we were building it, I was helping the volunteers do it, and I thought it'd be cool if there was a time-lapse, and I didn't even know they had a camera hooked up to a sign until after we were done. Oh, okay, I don't know how to get this started.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Oh, wait a minute.
I'll just start over again, yeah.
Yeah, I will.
Amazing.
We didn't actually work that fast, but we did do everything in one day.
So as you can see, there's a shipped theme in the spirit of Columbus Park playground now. And if you would have driven by this park 3 years ago, you would have, and then again, like Chair Susan Nolan said, it looked like somebody just flipped the park overnight. It's beautiful now, and it has all new amenities.
And they use it all the time.
Constantly. Splash pad
I
is
like it.
unbelievable.
How many people?
On this project, there was probably about 20.
Look like one more.
The rain garden's on the right.
Yeah, you can kind of see that on the right side of the screen. There we go.
You moved as fast as the clouds.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Kimberly Hansen, Executive Director, Rebuilding Together. And the reason why we had to move as quickly as the clouds is because the year before it rained all day. So that was one of the reasons why our organization with Meredith came back for a second time, the second year in this park. Was not everything got done the previous year. And I have to tell you, so we got there at 5:30 in the morning to get started. And about 6:30 it started to sprinkle. And I think everybody was like, oh no, you know, because last year it was like side wind rain all day. But this, the group of Meredith volunteers, and I know Mel Meredith was going to try to make it today, truly phenomenal volunteerism in the community, and this is their 12th year of doing a fall project with us. So certainly a big component for Rebuilding Together, but also a big component for the parks, because we try every year to have a parks included in the projects. So thank you for the acknowledgement, and we're now on the mission to decide what we're doing next year. So we can certainly work with the board and the Friends Board on selecting what park for next year.
Kim, thank you so much for being here this evening. And
Thank you.
These partnerships are so important to the development of the parks and keeping the city alive and well, so thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Take a quick opportunity.
Thanks.
Since we are televised, we'll take just a very quick opportunity to tell you that, you know, the resources that we have, we all know that they've been dwindling as far as the city resources to do these kind of projects. We manage 76 parks, numerous playgrounds, and right now we have enough resources to replace one playground per year. So without partnerships out there, we wouldn't succeed. We just sent a letter last week to our neighborhood leaders to tell them that, you know, we have rules we must follow when playground safety is considered. There's national accreditation programs to make sure your playgrounds are safe. We sent a letter out last week saying that 12 of them did not pass inspection, and in addition, we can no longer get the replacement parts because they were that old. So our crews are out this fall through Ron's team to remove. So we have a tremendous need to find more partnerships in the community. We have some ideas we're working on, but if any board members or anybody listening has an idea on a partnership to help us find more playgrounds, we would love to have that conversation and begin those things during this off season so we could plan for the future.
Ben, being somebody that's lived in that neighborhood and has been in that park since I was a child, thank you. Thank the Parks Department. The splash pad does not go, there's not a day that it doesn't go by, an hour that doesn't go by that there isn't somebody using that. The park is beautiful. It's, you know, the neighborhood just loves it, and I grew up there. So I really do appreciate the efforts of the folks. And it was going to rain on you, but you got lucky, and we're very happy to have it down there. The kids are really enjoying it. I mean, up until this week, I was in that park every night, 3 or 4 nights a week coaching football, and the kids were just crawling over it like monkeys. Moms were up there playing, so it's, you know, a beautiful thing for that neighborhood, and it keeps us rejuvenated down in there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next is our Did You Know? We've been trying to catalog the history of our parks for the board members as well as the public and for future references. So tonight's Did You Know is by Kevin Moran. It's on Brody School Park, one of our newer parks.
Chairman Nolan, members of the Park and Recreation Board, Kevin Moran, Senior Park Planner. Tonight, as Ben mentioned, we're talking about Brody School Park. All right, it is one of our newest parks in our system. It's located at 3100 Southwest 23rd Street. It's there in the middle of the map, outlined in red, is directly behind Brody Middle School. It's actually on the campus of the school. It is a successful school-park partnership, which we had a collaboration with the Des Moines Public Schools and the City of Des Moines Parks and Rec Department. It started with a couple documents, planning documents over the years. So the first one was this Parklands. It's a 1995 Park and Recreation Comprehensive Master Plan. Parklands recommended the construction of new parks in residential areas of the city that are not presently being served by a park within a half mile of the center of that neighborhood. It also suggests that schools be inventoried and utilized for parks if campuses are at least 5 acres of suitable undeveloped acreage and open space. The community park concept is based upon the premise that existing school campuses favored with a surplus of property or open space are conducive to serving a multifaceted role, especially as a neighborhood park. Schools are usually well located within close proximity to residential neighborhoods, and there also are cost savings through savings of land use and amenities for the areas. The second planning document a couple years later is this one. It's the Southwestern Hills Neighborhood Park Plan. The city hired Dunbar Jones and RDG to complete it in 1998. It took a more in-depth look at the Southwestern Hills neighborhood. It inventoried existing parks and recreation facilities. It reviewed citizens' interests and concerns, identified parks and recreation surpluses and deficiencies, and within the entire neighborhood of Southwestern Hills. Brody Middle School campus was identified as a site to be developed as a neighborhood park. From there, it took on to another step, which was creating the master plan for the park. As you can see, the timeline briefly up there, it's a long process. The plan was completed in-house by park planning staff. A lot of times we hire consultants, but this is one of those that, and over the years we have been using our own staff to save money and been doing some of these projects very well. There was a lot of entities involved, and that's the reason why it took a number of years. A steering committee was created and established with members from the school district, the Park and Recreation Board, and staff. Jane Hine and Jim Nahas were the representatives from this board on that steering committee. There also was public and steering committee meetings were held, input from the neighborhood, school representatives, committee members and gatherings, and other concept plans were created, and then everything was reviewed. The plan also had to address the needs and desires of the neighborhood as well as the school. The school also wanted to look at the circulation of the parents and the buses for drop-off and pickup of the kids. There's also the future expansion needs of the school, whether it's the building or the parking lot. And then there was also the school activities and how they might conflict with the park users. And so all this had to be taken into consideration. Once the plan was developed, it had to be approved by the Park and Recreation Board here. Then it went to the Des Moines Public Schools Board, and then it went to the City Council. So you can see why there was a number of steps. Finally, construction drawings and documents were created. The park was started construction in 2005, the summer of 2005, and then completed January 2006. I would be a little remiss if I didn't have a little history with these, even though it's the newest park. Thanks, the Des Moines Public Schools. I gathered most of this information off their website, so it's a great site, by the way. Joseph Brody was born in a small town in Iowa and moved to Des Moines as a young boy. A graduate of East High and Grinnell College, went on to study law at the University of Chicago Law School. Practiced law in Des Moines for over 50 years, or over 48 years, sorry. He was also the founders of the Iowa Civil Liberties Union and served as the president of the Polk County Bar Association. He's also one of the few lawyers in Iowa to present a case in the United States Supreme Court, a case that he apparently won. The case had to deal with how big band members were taxed by the government. He also helped found a law firm with his retired friend, District George Bramer, in the late 1920s. The firm that has become one of the largest law firms in the state and is now known as the Davis Brown Law Firm. He was also a member of the school board from 1955 until his death, where he served as the president from 61 and 62. He volunteered for many civic activities that were important to the people of Des Moines, which has been part of his legacy. His actions inspired many from the firm to volunteer their time and help others even today. The park itself, as I mentioned, was on the campus of Brody School and consists of nearly 21 acres. It has 2 tennis courts, a basketball court complex, has 2 smaller basketball courts and then 1 large collegiate court across it. Has athletic fields that allow football, soccer, baseball to be taken care of. Recreational trail, it's about a half a mile. That trail also is used by the track and their gym classes. They use that to do for the gym kids to run around. Has off-street parking, open air shelter, and a playground. That was one of the keys to this development, was to make sure that even though this is a neighborhood park, these amenities could be used by the school students as well as the neighbors, and that the conflicts, we haven't had any. Obviously, as the kids are in class, we just really, most of the people don't, aren't on the campus, and so it's been worked out very well. After hours, a lot of kids are having their soccer practices, football practices, and the parents are using the trail, keeping an eye on everything. I'll leave you with this little site plan here. It's a transformation of the open space at Brody School Park into the park it is today and the great amenity for the neighborhood.
Any questions for Kevin? Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks.
Next up, Kevin's up, he's sneaking off, is Indianola Road, as you know, goes through one of our largest parks, Ewing Park. And there's a great project going on right now with the city, and there's a major landscape change coming up. So Kevin has invited the city's engineer assigned to the project here to describe some of this and talk about it, maybe answer questions you may have if you've noticed what the landscape changes are happening.
All right. Chairman Nolan and members of the board. My name is Dave Camp. I'm with the City Engineer's Office. I'm the project engineer on the Indianola Road project. It's a multi-phase project. It's running from East 14th all the way down to Army Post. We've completed 2 of the 4 phases, and we're currently working on the 3rd phase. This is kind of an overview of the area of our 3rd phase that we're currently working on and what we wanted to talk about today. It runs roughly from McKinley Avenue down to Porter. Let's see here. What we're trying to do on this, this is a little bit more closer view of our current phase that you maybe see them working out right now. What we're doing is we're reconstructing a 2-lane roadway into a 4-lane roadway with bike commuter lanes and also sidewalk and a trail. So unfortunately, it takes a little bit more space. The portion going through Ewing Park is actually a boulevard section. If you just look up north of where we're working right now, we've completed a portion through the Ewing Park, and it gives you a really good picture of what the heck is this thing going to look like, and you can kind of look up there and see exactly what it's going to look like. So this kind of gives you an overview of the area, kind of gives you an idea where the Soapbox Derby track is, Ewing Park, Easter Lake Drive, and McKinley Avenue. The one change that we did make to Phase 3 is we do have a trail running along Indianola all the way from East 14th down to roughly the dog park or Yater Creek right now. We're actually going to, instead of running that trail along the side of the road, which is kind of would have caused a little bit more grading work, would have removed a few more trees through that area. So what we did is we kind of followed the path of the existing gravel path, which is called Harry Piper Parkway, back through there. Gives you a better experience as using a trail. It's actually a trail, get it away from the roadway and actually a better experience. We will still be constructing a sidewalk, a 5-foot sidewalk on the east side of the road, so that will stay in place. We will be upgrading a little bit of the sidewalk between Porter and Easter Lake on the east side up to a 10-foot wide path. So there's going to be a lot of pedestrian facilities, a lot of motor facilities through this corridor. There's a couple, the impacts to the park in this area are, which you can see going on right now, are the tree impacts. There are tree removals through the area. What we did do is work with Parks through the design process, and the area just to the east side of Indianola down by Yater Creek was identified as native forest when Ewing Park was donated to the city of Des Moines. So what we did is we flip-flopped our sewer project, or our sewer alignment to the other side of the road to reduce impacts to that native forest. So we did impact a few sycamores, but we felt it was more prudent to preserve that nature, the natural forest. So as we look a little bit closer into the Ewing Park parking lot, there's a few changes that will be occurring in this location. The existing driveway or access out to Indianola does not line up with Easter Lake Drive, which kind of causes a little bit of a difficulty when you're leaving, exiting, entering. So Easter Lake is proposed to be have a traffic signal at it. So that's why we wanted to realign the access 90 degrees back up with Easter Lake Drive. So our new entrance will be a little bit different. It's in a new location. The existing historic piers there will not be relocated. They will stay as is, as part of this project. So we will not be relocating those. I know through all the public meetings I go through, everybody asks me, are you moving those piers? I've heard you moving those piers. We will not be moving the piers. So all in all, this is, like I say, the third out of 4 phases. You'll be seeing the major grade and pave operation next summer, where we actually close Indianola Road and actually do the major grade and pave. So you'll see most of the construction work next summer. So I didn't know if anybody had any questions.
Will you be reconstructing those markers
No, we will leave them as is,
where they are?
where they are. We being a federal project, we cannot touch anything historic.
Okay.
But what we did do is we provided a new sidewalk down to between the piers. So now when you're walking down there, you can actually stop and see what they say on the sides. So you'll be able to come a little bit closer to them rather than just driving by.
Do you know what the entry will look like for your proposed project?
It will be basically 2 lanes, 1 in, 1 out, and it will line up with the Easter Lake Drive across the roadway. It will be signalized, so that will give egress and ingress a lot more ease and safety. So
That's the exit right now.
Yeah,
I have a
that's
question.
not gonna
yes,
What's the composite of that trail, of the walking trail that's going to go through the park?
the walking trail will be built directly right on that gravel driveway, and we are proposing a 6-inch asphalt thick surface. It will be 12-foot wide. We know that during the season, a lot of folks, you do open the trail up to folks to drive through on, I think it's Mother's Day.
It's about a 10 to 14-day period where the lilacs are in full bloom. So when we met with engineering the project, we said, right now that's a gravel road for those of you who've ever been on that road. And we would figure a way to co-manage vehicles and people. And it's an improvement because right now it's gravel. And we talked about the experience you'd have. We had plans for trails in that part of town. And we talked about, like as David said, it could follow the road or you could bring them up through the lilacs. Much better, in my opinion, to bring them up through the lilacs next to a busy road. So we're getting an improvement that's necessary, I think, as part of the project.
Would it be possible at the old entrance that you said is going to be preserved, would it be possible to have a sitting area there added to it or to enhance that? Because if you're going to preserve it, we could possibly enhance it.
Right, and I can't remember the width that we're putting down there. We actually put down a fairly wide sidewalk down there. And we discussed a little bit, do you put a plaza down there? Providing the access down there, and then, yes, you'll be able to actually get down there and experience those a lot up close and personal. And as Parks keeps making some changes out here, I know they have some additional master plan out here. They may want to say, improve that area as they move forward. So
I think the rules that are assigned to some of the federal funding for the road project limit a lot of the flexibility we have as a city. So what I thought we would do is, let the project move through, but continue with our plans for the area and come back to the board and say, you know what, there's probably a better solution here. At the end of the day, we're all city money. We just want to separate the project because we have to, and we'll evaluate what the new need is now that we have a new entrance and where those pillars, homes for the future may lie. Again, we have to unravel this because there's some historic issues behind it. We want to make sure everybody feels good about this. So we'll separate the two projects, not confuse them with the street project, and we'll come up with a plan that I think everybody on the board can support as well as our team and look at that down the road.
How long will Indianola Road be closed?
The plan is to, starting next year about April, whenever the weather breaks. I've estimated about 3 months to be closed from McKinley, including McKinley, up to Easter Lake. 1 month at the intersection of Easter Lake and Indianola, and then 3 months from Easter Lake to Porter. We do have to work together with the disc golf folks because there's a lot of activities through here.
Yeah, there's a lot of cross-country meets. That area up there in the Ewing Park parking lot, that area is really utilized by high schools in the area for track meets or cross-country meets and stuff.
And that's why that line of communication's so important. Everybody's kind of keep, talking back and forth with me, because during that time frame that let's just pick that first time frame of closure from McKinley up to Easter Lake, you can still access the parking lot during that time frame. And then the only time that it's going to get really tough to access is that 1 month when that intersection is down.
And when will that be?
I would love to get my crystal ball out and say, I would estimate April, May, June for the first phase, July for the second, and August, September, October for the third phase. So I'm just giving these 3 months, so I'm saying middle of summer.
So it'll sort of be open for lilac season?
Oh, yeah. And you'll always, and that's kind of, we'll get you in and out as we need to. Early in the season, that'll be in May-ish. We're going to be up on the road working. So your access will be uninhibited through that area. And that's just a constant communication I keep having with Parks throughout the project. So
Dave's been very good to us, and we've had several meetings with our team and his trying to design the best fit for us, knowing that we don't control the right-of-way, but we control the access to the park, and we have the partners with the school, the renters, the folks that want to see the lilac arboretum, the disc golf folks. It's a lot of balls to juggle, but I feel confident that we have a plan and we have their support to make sure access is met, and we'll continue to work on that.
And this is actually the easiest one that we've done so far. The others, I mean, we've had the school. We've had, a lot of more challenging items, of times and all that. These are what I would consider easy to accommodate, so.
Good.
Any other questions for Dave?
If you haven't seen us drive by sometime in the next few days, it's a huge different change as far as your view. It's opened up now, and it's going to be a change for the park.
And it's currently, I wouldn't drive through during the day. It is currently closed. We're closing it during the day, today through Friday, just 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Good point.
Just to get some of the trees that are right against the road, so they can safely remove those. So Saturday you'll see a significant change. So.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Ron's up next to talk about our prescribed burn plan.
Chair Nolan, members of the Park and Recreation Board, Ron Ward, Park Manager. Just wanted to give you an update. We're getting ready to go into our prescribed burn season. The Park and Recreation Department uses prescribed fire as a land management technique. In nature, fire is essential to maintain the integrity of native prairie and woodland species. In a park setting, controlled burns offer a safe way to use the benefits of fire, which include increasing the wildlife and plant diversity and improving the land's ability to function as a green utility for the city. Our burn plan for this season, which will be from November 1st through May 1st, includes the following areas: Ewing Park, Gailey Wilson Trail, Grandview Park, Grays Lake, Greenwood Park, McRae Park, McHenry Park, Meredith Trail, Prospect Park, Pioneer Park, Sargent Park, the Greater Des Moines Softball Complex, Glendale Cemetery, Union Park, Valley High Manor, Waveland Golf Course, Woodland Park, and Elm Grove Cemetery. And when we get ready, we actually just got our burn permit from Polk County Air Quality, so everything's all ready to go now. We have postcards that we're ready to mail out. We were waiting to have the burn permit in hand. Now we have postcards that we mail out to residences within, or property owners within 1,000 feet of any of these areas. And then we'll also do press release the day of that we're going to be doing any of the burns. So, is there any questions?
This is your first burn for several of these sites, is that correct?
That's,
I was thinking of Gailey Wilson and,
yeah, there's a couple of new ones in there, yeah, that we added. And yeah, last year, we didn't get any fall burns in last year, so we're looking forward to being able to get some done this year. We think it's going to be a good season for it.
So we also burn in the spring, and that large number, there's a lot of acres there that we're talking about, just for those that are new on the board, it's weather dependent, you know, and the day, if it could be a perfect day, if the wind shifts, we call it
Yeah,
off. There's a
we'll
lot
call
of
it off.
safety protocols involved. I want you to know as a board that we get not only our permits, we talk to the city's risk manager, and we have had some experience doing this in the past, so we don't make any chances or risks with this. We make sure it's a very safe protocol for us, and we don't want to lose the ability to do this because it's a very efficient way for us to maintain these landscapes.
any other questions for Ron? Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard has the next two items. We have some really exciting news, and I'll let him tell you because he did all the hard work to get it.
Can I have that projector, Rebecca?
The projector?
Chair Nolan, members of the Park and Recreation Board, Richard Brown, Park Planner 3. I'm excited to announce tonight that we, as the Park and Recreation Department, recently received approval from the Department of Natural Resources for a $300,000 REAP grant through the Resource Enhancement and Protection Program. It's a program that has been very successful through the DNR in enhancing local parks and recreation facilities, building trails, protecting land, and we've been recipient of multiple grants over the years. But we're really excited about this one because we received a grant, $300,000, and the city of Des Moines will put in $80,000 to enhance and restore the woodlands, oak woodlands and savannas at McRae Park just south of downtown, as well as construct a nature trail with educational and interpretive signage, and connect a paved trail to the Meredith Trail just to the north of the park. So we're really looking forward to this project, and we expect that design of the trail will start this winter and do a little bit of ecological planning work to see how we want that restoration to go with implementation in 2014. So we're very, very excited about this, and this actually is a result of the natural resource inventory, which we'll be talking about 10 minutes. Any
This
questions?
is our second REAP grant in as many years, and it's a very competitive process. There's only so many dollars, and there is a lot of need in the state of Iowa for recreational dollars and park improvements. And I'm very proud, talk about the scoring too, that our team, as you know, we're also all very proud of them, but they're very good at grant writing, they're very good at articulating the needs. So what you tell us about the scoring?
Yeah, we were very excited about this. The DNR scores these grants through a whole series of about 10 different criteria, from the population to be impacted, to the environmental impacts, to the recreational qualities, to impacts to peoples with disability, across the entire spectrum. We were very excited that that was ranked the #1 grant, so we didn't actually have to worry about we were going to get funded or not. One of the things with the REAP program is that they're authorized through the state to have a certain funding level, but the authorization each year is actually up to the legislature itself. So there's always projects, if they're fully funded, that could be funded that don't. So we are very excited that we weren't even close to that line. So it was very
Again,
good.
it's very rare to get that grant back to back for the same community. So again, we're very proud, and congratulations to Richard for this hard work.
We're excited
to put
about
in
it.
this.
Yes, congratulations. Wonderful news. This whole report has been just really quite fantastic.
Well, we try not to have bad news. We're trying.
Yeah.
How can I have that?
While he's pulling this up, a while back, we had some requests to look at Union Park. It's got a lot of streets, as you can see from the map, and there's a lot of different attractions within the park. One of the concerns was, you know, for safety, should there be some kind of street addressing inside there, because it wasn't at the time, for 911 purposes, et cetera, as well as when you want to have a family gathering, where would you go knowing that we have multiple shelters? So if you're having an event or a reunion, where do you go? And the old version of go to the east or the west side wasn't the best way to do this. So upon the council members as well as the neighborhood leaders, we looked into their request, and Richard will tell you that we do now have some signage up.
Yeah, so about a year ago, like Ben said, we received a letter through Councilman Mahaffey that he received a request from the Union Park Neighborhood Association that police and fire and people just couldn't find their way through the park because they couldn't really describe other than, like Ben said, there's a large tree, there's a shelter, there's a playground. So upon receiving that request, we actually worked with our E911 police and fire department to put together a street naming scheme that would work for Union Park. So what we came up with is that Thompson Avenue would continue east to west through the park. East of the park, it's Thompson Avenue. West of the park, it's Birdland Drive, but it made sense to continue as Thompson Avenue. The circle south of Thompson Avenue is Union Park Circle. Over on the west-hand side here, we wanted to stay with the typical street grid. So this is North Union Street because just north of the park is North Union Street. Same on this little spur that comes off Union Park Circle here. This is actually East 8th Street, which ties into the street grid. And then we actually had the ability to give this street here that comes from the circle, crosses Thompson, goes up to the carousel, and back down to Thompson. We had the ability to give it whatever name we wanted, so we came up with Carousel Drive. So once we got all those streets named, we actually was determined it didn't need to go through the City Council's naming policy because it was in accordance with all the existing naming conventions and street grids out there. And so we named those streets. They all tie into the E911 system. Just to give you an example, you know, all the streets and addresses are based off a street grid. So if it's on the east side of the street, it's an even number. It's the west side of the street, it's an odd number. Same with east-west streets. So we wanted to make sure that when you call a 911, they could find you, and they know how to get out there and help you and assist with that. The one tricky thing that's kind of unique to this is the circle. How do you address the circle? And so we actually had several meetings, and the best way to describe what happened out there is that it's a really large boulevard. So think of Polk Boulevard, only it's just one big circle. So on the right hand of Union Park Circle, as you're going east and north, it's an even. And if you're going south and west, it's an odd. So just think of Union Park Circle as a really large boulevard now.
On this map, where is the Ding Darling shelter?
Ding Darling Shelter is actually just off the map, right about here where my arrow's at. So that's west of Sailor Road. So once we were able to get that taken care of, we actually got a series of street signs. Most of them are up now. We got to make a couple changes to some existing stop signs. But if you go out there now, you will see signs that look like this. It says Union Park Circle, and so that the police or people can identify where we're at. And I actually have one extra one, so you can get a kind of feel what they look like in real life. So typical street sign, but because it's a park and recreation road, it's brown in color. So that's how you can always identify it's a park road. They'll be brown in color like this, similar to other signs that are brown. If it's a street, it's green, a public street, otherwise it's a park road. Any questions on that? Yeah.
Do you know when the rest of the signs might be going up?
Yeah, it should be by the end of the week. We just have to make a couple of changes to a couple stop signs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
All right. Next for you is just a board action item, appointing a member to your official subcommittee of the Trails and Greenways Committee. You have the information in front of you in the bio on that, on the recommendation, so we'll take any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
I'll move. Second.
Rebecca, would you call the roll, please?
Nolan.
Yes?
Ogle.
Yes.
Club.
Yes.
Facto.
Yes.
Kaney Vanderhaar.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Cahill.
Yes.
Passick.
Yes.
Yanza.
Yes.
Scavo.
Yes.
Thornton.
Yes.
Feltner.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Boson.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. On your receive and file section, cemetery fees. As you know that we have been really cognitive to make sure that we're always reviewing our fees. And as we've brought to you in the past, we went through a major overhaul of cemetery fees. And I do not want to confuse you. What we have in front of you now is new product options. It's not changing things that you already voted on last year, or back in April, excuse me. So new options and new products here. Cemetery Advisory Committee has done a great job of reviewing the staff recommendation. They've authorized that recommendation forward to you. for the new board members, when we set fees, it's quite the process. We take 2 meetings with you to make sure the public can come, and the city council has at least 2 meetings on fees. They look at our fees and they review them and have a public input process there. I feel very good about our process, so we vetted it strongly, and I'll take any questions you may have. There'll be more fees coming your way in the near future because we're looking at recreation and golf fees as we talk right now, so.
I just think Marlene ought to be commended for the amazing work you've done with that committee. Wow, that's a huge process that you went through. And educating the board was part of that process, and I really appreciate that because I had no prior knowledge of that, so thank you.
In 2007, the cemetery subsidy was 49%, or about $1 million, which is very significant, as we can all imagine this tough day we have economically speaking. Right now, we know we're down to the, as she says here, 23%, is that right? And we have a goal of, what's the number again? 7%. We have a goal of 7% that we believe we'll hit in here in the near future. So in a 2-year span, you can see that we've put together a very impressive reduction on what we've used to have for a subsidy at the cemetery operation. And I thank you for pointing out Marlene. She's done just a tremendous job. We have a great staff, and I appreciate the board when you mention that, because she's done above and beyond work to get that turned around in short order.
Yes, I have to thank Susan for saying that, but kudos to Marlene and your staff. It's just been remarkable. Do I have a motion from the board?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now I think you're in for a real treat.
Thank you. Some of the most important and labor-intensive assignments we've had in the last 2 years is the natural resources inventory. Richard's going to run you through the city council workshop we gave Monday morning, which is a result of those 2 years of work that we've done. And I think it's a very important initiative that we continue to move now that we have the information. What I told the city council Monday morning was, at a time where the community is growing and expanding and working on upgrading and improving their infrastructure such as sewers and roads, it's also important to have the parks and the green spaces in that same conversation. We know that right now that the green infrastructure that we do provide reduces flooding impacts and cleans air and cleans water. So these things are very necessary just for the basic human quality of life that we have here in Des Moines. We also know that our parks do many things as far as improve economic values of our community and improve the lives of people by having just a free space to recreate and improve their health. Richard's going to talk about these things now, and I'm very proud of this work as well as what we've been hearing tonight on other projects. So Richard, would you go ahead?
Thanks, Ben. Chair Nolan, members of the Park and Recreation Board, Richard Brown, Park Planner 3. This is the presentation we gave yesterday to the City Council at their workshop, and like Ben said, it represents a lot of work that we put into this, and are very excited to present the results of this inventory and where it's going to lead us as far as how we manage land in the future. Especially for everyone that's new here on the board, but in general, we want to talk a little bit about how we got to this point. Getting through a natural resource inventory is a project and a process that's really started several years ago for us. We also want to look at some of the major findings and conclusions that we found when we conducted this inventory. And finally, now that we have an inventory, how are we going to utilize it and move forward, especially as we're managing and looking at how we manage this land? A little bit about the history. About 5 to 7 years ago, we really started through our Park and Recreation Board and our Urban Conservation Advisory Committee looking at ways to have a more sustainable landscape through our park and open space system. We're managers and stewards of nearly 4,000 acres across the city of Des Moines, from parks that are just a couple acres in size to parks as large as Ewing, which is nearly 350, and thousands of contiguous acres of land along the 2 rivers in Des Moines. And additionally, beyond that, we started looking at how can we decrease some of our inputs. That means put less pesticides down, less fertilizers down, and really look at ways that we could decrease our irrigation across the park and open space system. And also at the same time, we want to look at are there ways to increase the natural vegetation across the park and open space system. That being the prescribed burns that Ron talked about, looking at shoreline restorations. We've done some great work at Grays Lake, are working at Greenwood Pond now. Looking at reforestation, since 2008, or excuse me, since 2006, we planted nearly 4,000 trees across our park and open space system to replace and encourage new growth across our forests. And finally, we started to look at restoring land. Areas like McRae Park, we've done some restoration and prescribed burning out there. We're looking at, and we have done some implementation of prairies across our park and open space system. So we've really done a lot of changes here in the last 5 to 7 years. But it was really one project that kicked this all off. There came a proposal from the Army Corps of Engineers after the floods of 2008 that they wanted to rebuild the Birdland Levee. At the same time, we said, it would be really great if we could do a new accessible trail connection between McHenry Park and the Riverview area down below. If you're not familiar, there's about a 60-foot grade change between the top of McHenry Park down to where Riverview is at. The old trail that used to be there was pretty much almost a straight up and down vertical, probably 20% grade there. So we said, is this an opportunity to do something better with the trail? What we found out there is actually, in order to do that, we'd have to change the face of McHenry Park and cut down about 150 mature trees. At that time, we weren't really sure what that meant from an ecological standpoint, and that really forced us as a department that if we wanted to move forward with this project, we needed to have good information for future decision making. So the council authorized us to move forward if we did a master plan for McHenry Park, but also, too, if we would do a natural resource inventory and make sure that what was left out of McHenry Park was more ecologically sound. So you can see this photo here is actually some of our staff out planting a prairie once that work was taken care of. And now some of that prairie is really starting to come along a couple of years later. Once council authorized us to move forward with this project, we issued a competitive RFP to find someone that could conduct an inventory of our nearly 4,000 acres of park and open space land. We selected the most qualified person out there out of a selection of 6 different people that submitted proposals. In April 2011, the City Council hired Dr. Tom Rosberg from Drake University to complete the natural resource inventory for us. What we found out through this process, that even though Tom has sat on our Urban Conservation Advisory Committee, we didn't realize what a gem we had sitting right there. He is one of the most respected botanists in the state of Iowa, if not the entire Midwest. So we hit the jackpot that he was willing to come in and do our inventory for us. What we are asking him to do, we're asking him to inventory nearly 4,000 acres. This is the map that we included in this, but you can see here, we asked him to look at parks, open space areas, our golf courses, cemeteries, and our sports complexes. Each one of those is represented on the map there. What were we actually asking him to do? We asked him to take an in-depth look at our natural resources. We didn't ask him to go out and count every tree. We didn't ask him to go out and count every flower. But we asked him to take an inventory of the trees and the flowers and what plant communities that those things together create. We asked him for data to make informed recommendations and decisions so we could stand up here in the front of the Park and Recreation Board and the City Council and make recommendations based on solid data that we got from him. And finally, we asked him to give us appropriate data that would allow us to work with the STAR community rating system. This is a nationwide program that is seeking to rate cities on their sustainability, such as the LEED program does for buildings. So we wanted appropriate data that would help us to rate the city's sustainability when it came to natural resources. One of the things is we had to ask ourselves why this is important to us. Our park system sees millions of visits each year. We know that from our trail counts to our counts at Grays Lake and the other 76 parks we have across the city. We found from surveys, citywide surveys, but also park and recreation surveys, that users want more ability to get out into our park and open space. They want to get past the playground. They want to get past the paved trail. They want to get out and experience it. And only 15% of that 4,000 acres is actually mowed. So you have nearly 85% of the park and open space system that can be explored by users. And also we wanted to really assess the natural resource health. What condition are our natural resources in? Are they very pristine? Are they very degraded? We didn't know that. And so we really needed to get an assessment of that so we can really move forward and manage our park and open space system correctly. What are we trying to do as part of this? We are trying to reduce our maintenance costs. We're finding that overall, managing these natural areas actually reduces our maintenance costs through the prescribed burns. Ron can take care of a lot of land with a prescribed burn every 3 to 5 years versus having to mow it 25 times a year and paying a contractor every single time. We found very historic and culturally significant landscapes. For example, this is McRae Park, what we just talked about, getting the REAP grant. But you can see it's right in the shadow of downtown, and it's been protected for nearly 120 years. It's a remnant, it's a cultural historic landmark that dates back to when the city was founded. We also actually can provide ecosystem services. Like Ben said, we can absorb more water with well-managed landscapes. And we actually can increase passive recreation opportunities such as mountain biking, walking, hiking, wildlife viewing, areas that get you off the beaten path into our park system and really can take in the beauty and the awesomeness that is our parks. Oops, wrong way, sorry. Just a few of the things that we asked him to do as part of the inventory process. We wanted to map these plant communities. We wanted to know where they are, what each one was, and we actually wanted a description of the health. How healthy are they? Are they in good health or do they need a lot of work? We wanted some assessment of our management options. What are some key ways that we can take care of this land in a cost-effective way? Prescribed burning, are there minimal mows that we can do? Is there thinning of woodlands and forests? And then finally, knowing that we have a perennial budget issue where we have tight budgets, we wanted him to look and help us prioritize which areas need the most help right away, which ones can be restored right away and should be restored right away. As part of actually doing the inventory, he had to come up with a methodology. First thing he did once he got the job was actually went out and compared a lot of historical context. He was able to go out and get some of the original survey maps from before the city was founded or right after the city was founded in the 1850s to see what the original landscape looked like here. He was able to get historical aerial photos from the 1930s all the way through the day today to see what this landscape looked like, how it's changed over the years. He was also able to get soils maps. Soils maps are one of the key indicators of what actually these landscapes looked like when the city was founded. After that, he went out and walked all these spaces 3 times in 1 year. He went out and did a spring survey, a summer survey, and a fall survey to really get a full context of what these landscapes looked like and what they actually were and how they acted out there. Afterwards, he mapped every single one of these spaces, gave us GIS data so that we can work with our field staff, we can work with Public Works Department, we can work with all the different departments across the city to say this is what these areas are and this is the plants and communities that we found out there. He's actually compiled that data, and once it's all taken care of, we expect it to be about a 1,000-page report Dr. Rosberg has done. And this is maybe a really good point to say that we probably got the best deal ever from him because this entire survey that's gone on for about 2 years cost the city about $52,000, which is probably the equivalent to nearly a $500,000 study based on the amount of hours and work that he's put into it. Once he compiled that data, he was able to start doing assessments on the overall ecosystem health. He gave them scores based on the different species he found out there, and is preparing management recommendations for each one of these areas. Some we may want to take back to how they looked historically when the city was founded. Others we may want to manage for more diversity and different tree species based on future pests we might predict. Some of the major conclusions he's found is that the City of Des Moines Park and Open Space System has substantial ecological quality. For example here, this prairie trillium was found at Prospect Park, and he only found one of them, and I actually haven't been able to find it since he found it that 1 year, but it's the farthest west he's found it in the state of Iowa, and the first time it's actually been found in Polk County. So within our parks, there are great ecological quality. But at the same time, we do have threats from invasive species that nearly every one of our parks, its function and ecology could be infected or impacted by invasive species. And finally, he found some great examples of degraded oak savannas that should be targeted for restoration. When we really start to kind of talk about numbers of the ecological quality out here, he found 651 different species, from flowers to grasses to trees to shrubs. That's equivalent to 1/3 of all the species that are found in the state of Iowa can be found on the City of Des Moines Park and Open Space System. And when he talks about ecological quality, he talks about a percentage of the species that are conservative. Basically what he's saying is 17% of all the species that he found in our Park and Open Space System will only grow in areas that can't take a lot of disturbance, are very high quality ecologically. So we have great areas out there in our Park and Open Space System. This photo here is taken from McRae. So McRae is, just in the shadow of downtown, a great biological jewel we have. Additionally, we owe a lot of this to previous park boards and city councils that back in the early 1890s, they protected about 600 acres of which is our current Park and Open Space System. And it's because of that they purchased that land and put it in public protection that most of these areas are still here today. Grandview, this park photo was done from the early 1900s, and you can see some of these big trees that were out there in the early 1900s that are still out there today. Grandview, Greenwood, McRae, Waveland Golf Course, and Union Park were the first parks that are out there. And those are some of the areas he found some of the best stuff in our park and open space system. Across the entire system, he found about 80 different diverse ecosystems, and he broke them down into 6 different categories: grasslands, shrublands, savannas, woodlands, forests, and wetlands. Just to give you an example of the work he did from a mapping standpoint, this is an example of the mapping that he's done through our GIS system of the park and open space system. I didn't want to do the whole thing, but just give you a feel. This is McHenry Park at the top right. This is the old Riverview area, Des Moines River, and Prospect Park here. Every one of these areas he's walked and surveyed, found all the plants, defined what the actual communities are based on the soils and the plants and the trees that he found, and then mapped them all out and is actually providing assessment and management recommendations. So you can just see from here the great amount of work that he went to really tell us what we had out there. One of the things he noted, and was one of the key recommendations, or I guess key conclusions, is that we have an issue with invasive species. And as kind of targeted in his report, invasive species are designed as a species that are non-native to the ecosystem under consideration and whose introduction causes or is likely to cause economic or environmental harm to human health. So using his definition that he used in the inventory, he found 12 species pose the greatest threat to the ecological health of our park and open space system. And this is just plant species. This isn't talk like the emerald ash borer, insects, or anything like that. This is just plants. And these 12 plants are actually threatening the overall integrity of our parks' ecosystems, and they have been found in just about every one of our parks. For example, here's 3 of the biggest offenders. This is garlic mustard that is found in a lot of our areas and starting to grow into more and more areas, but Greenwood Park is an example where it has a lot of garlic mustard, and once it takes over, it's pretty much the only species out there. This is Tree of Heaven. Probably the best offending example of this is actually at Waveland Golf Course at 55th and University at the northwest corner of the golf course there. That's all there is Tree of Heaven, and it's basically taken over that entire corner. And this is Japanese knotweed that is taking over smaller areas, but could threaten a much larger area eventually if it takes foothold. So these are just 3 of the offenders that could really take over and threaten our park system. Beyond that, he noticed that we've all heard and we've had presentations about the emerald ash borer that is starting to slowly creep its way towards Des Moines. But he didn't look at it from the fact that, but he noted that the green ash is the most prevalent species we have in our entire park and open space system. Between flowers and grasses and shrubs, oak trees, maple trees, you name it, the green ash is the most prevalent species we have out there, which means that when it does get here, the emerald ash borer will cause significant ecological disturbance to our park system. It will change the face of our park system and how it looks and how it feels. So it's something that we have to be prepared for, and we are working with the municipal arborist, David Yon, to address that and plan for that impending. We expect the board to get here eventually. Despite some of those issues that he found, we do have a lot of great opportunities out there. We have historic landscapes that we can restore. We can look at reducing our maintenance costs in times of tight budgets, improving our water quality, utilizing more of the parkland for different types of recreational opportunities, and at the same time, getting more and more people out into our park system to see about it and appreciate it. When Ben and I were preparing for this presentation, we actually had an opportunity to sit down with the city manager, and he still remembered that we had taken him out into the park system 2 years ago to look at some of these trees and kind of look at some of these areas that we don't normally get to. So it does make a difference when people get out into our park and open space system. Utilizing the inventory moving forward, we can use it to be in a leadership role. Being in Des Moines, the Park and Recreation Department, the biggest city in the state, we can be leaders in how we manage our natural resources and move forward in improving our water quality, reducing our maintenance costs, trying to find ways to attack those invasive species and reduce them. We're probably not ever going to get rid of them, but there's ways that we can manage and reduce them. And most importantly, we can protect and restore these historic landscapes. We cannot, in our lifetime or anyone's lifetimes, regrow 150 or 200-year-old oak trees. But those examples are out there. Even though in a degraded state, we can restore them and protect them for future generations to see what some of these landscapes looked like before Des Moines was settled as a city. We're already utilizing this inventory to prioritize our projects for implementation. That's why we targeted Greenwood Park. and McCray Park for priorities when we wrote REAP grants. We're using the data in the inventory to help track and implement some of our green infrastructure projects. We can use this data as a baseline for what these ecosystems look like in 2011 and 12. And then as we start to improve and restore these areas, we can actually go back and see the difference that we're making and actually have solid data behind it. And like we talked about, we actually can use this data to write grants and receive grants. That's a lot of the information that we found here in the inventory was actually very helpful and helped us score very high on those REAP grants. So we're using it to our advantage to get some of these grants and bring them back for these projects. One of the things that we found is that higher diversity of plants and trees actually will increase the amount of water that gets absorbed into the ground. That's less water that erodes into the ponds, the creeks, and the rivers. We can minimize some of the sediment in our ponds. We're spending a lot of work out at Greenwood Pond to try to improve the watershed above that so that we can slow the erosion down and keep that sediment out of the pond and preserve that as a recreational opportunity. Additionally, we're looking at minimizing flooding impacts. There are areas within our park system that could be converted to a wetland that actually absorbs and cleans the water before it gets to our creeks and our rivers. When we look at reducing our maintenance costs, we are looking at prescribed burns. As we get some of these landscapes under control, it's one of Ron's most effective tools to do that. A lot of times we like to show off the big fire picture when we're burning a prairie out at Gray's Lake, but when we were kind of drafting this presentation, Lauren Lown at Polk County says, don't do that. It kind of scares people from the fire. This is what most of our fires will actually look like. They're very slow, creeping fires across our woodlands that basically just burn up the leaf litter, and we're finding they actually stimulate natural tree regeneration. Where we've burned at McCray Park, this bottom photo here, we're actually seeing tons and tons of new oak trees that are being stimulated. That's less money we have to actually spend on purchasing trees and planting in our park system. We're getting this for free just by burning these areas. So a great way to save on actually purchasing trees, and it's from the native stock that's here. And overall, we'll end up with a more resilient landscape, one that is healthier, stronger, absorbs more water, and can be protected and be around for a long time. Additionally, Dr. Rosberg talked about how ecosystem restoration should be one of the key tenets of what we do moving forward here. He kind of prioritized these areas. First should be the oak savannas. An oak savanna is actually an area that is one of the rarest landscapes in all of the Midwest, if not the entire North American continent. It's characterized essentially by a prairie that has trees that provide a canopy of less than 30% per acre. And we have a lot of areas in our parks, such as Prospect, Greenwood, Ashworth, McCray, Grandview, and Pioneer, that actually have very degraded examples of those that, if we look at restoration, can bring those back and really be a cultural and historic landscape here within the city of Des Moines. It's a unique opportunity that most cities do not have here. Woodlands as well is kind of a transition between there and forests. Prairie areas, he found that actually prairies are one of the most underrepresented landscapes we have in the city of Des Moines as compared to when the city was founded in the 1850s. So essentially, once you got outside of all the creeks and the rivers, Des Moines was essentially a prairie. And there's a lot of opportunities that small portions of our parks could be converted to prairie areas to stimulate education, but a more diverse landscape for insects and bugs and animals, and really reduce some of our maintenance costs because there's less turf that we're mowing. And finally, he said there's areas of wetlands that we could protect and preserve and even restore and create. A good example is the area behind County Soccer Complex. We own about 200 acres out there, but a small portion of it's actually used for the soccer complex. The rest of it at various times has either been farmed or is just left to flood. But he said there's an area you could restore and make a very nice wetland out there that could really absorb a lot of water before it reaches the river. Now, as we kind of look at how we move forward from here, our goal is we're going to present results to staff and to the public. One of the best things we can do as part of this is really tell this story, why this is important, and how we're going to use this moving forward. We're going to start to take this inventory. We're going to prioritize everything that Dr. Rosberg has said, look at the needs and how we move forward. We're going to start budgeting for the implementation of that. We have limited capital dollars, but we're just getting started on our capital budgeting process now. It also is an opportunity for us to seek alternative funding, such as the REAP program. Another key tenet is we want to look at, should we hire the expertise we need to manage these landscapes in the form of a natural resource superintendent? So we're investigating that possibility right now. But then we also want to look toward our friends at the Des Moines Parks to help us with volunteers or fundraising or just even getting the message out. They're great advocates for us and will be great advocates for moving this land management and the results of this inventory forward. We actually stole this quote from a presentation that Marlene did a few years ago with Don Tripp. I thought it was really good and it related to what we're doing here. Essentially, it says, city dwellers need above all things to renew frequent contact with soil and growing things, to engage in activities that are different from the daily routine of living and working. The most basic of all planning measures is the reservation of open spaces in such numbers and with such areas both within and without city limits that the majority of people can easily frequent them, thereby getting away from congested living and working spaces where air is unrestricted movement and is reasonably clean and pure. And you know, at the bottom, that was written in 1928, and something like that is still relevant today in what we're doing. So I appreciate your time, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. That was a very good, to someone that is not knowledgeable on all that. Someone that's not knowledgeable, I thought you had a very good presentation. And does the invasive species, does the burning help control that? Or does it just take it away for a season?
No, it really is a combination of maintenance and management techniques. Once we get some of the invasive species under control, it'll actually help us to control them. One that I didn't put up there is honeysuckle, is a large shrub that really creates a green wall against most of our forested areas. Once we get like kind of an initial cutting through that, burning will help to keep that in check. So it is a combination of techniques. It's going to be really, we're going to have to look at a lot of different things and a lot of different ways to tackle this.
I think Ben, a couple meetings ago, or maybe one meeting ago, talked about removing the ash as a majority tree into a minority tree with the onset of the ash borer coming and in your plantings and stuff, in your future plantings.
Yeah, we stopped planting the emerald ash tree, green ash, several planting cycles ago just because we knew this was coming down the pipe. Right now, the future of the ash and how we will treat it will resolve with the city's or municipal arborist. He'll make that recommendation. He's looking at all angles. I mean, you've seen the newspapers where even as close as Johnson, Iowa, they just said, we're just going to get rid of them. There's a variety of ways to do it. Some people want to try to preserve some of these majestic ash trees to see if they can save them. So we're going to look at maybe a hybrid, but again, we'll wait till Dave Yon formulates an opinion on it and give it to us. But it's imminent, it's coming. And we were shocked to see that that was the most prevalent species we had in our system. So that means expense is coming down the pipe.
Good report.
Dick?
Richard, that was a great report, and I would just like to try and emphasize, ecosystems, I guess, what do they call it way back when I was in school, the photosynthetic process or something. One of the real problems we have, and you realize it, I think, and hopefully Dr. Rosberg will, is that none of this happens without water. Mm-hmm. And we have a horrible problem confronting us with water. We have running through our city a river that is one of the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth at the worst, most polluted river in the country. Mm-hmm. And the watersheds and those types of things, I'm sure he understands it well, and will also, as a part of this, take that into consideration in the needs that we have so we can go forward with this type of situation. That's an excellent report.
Absolutely. Definitely we are when we're working through these projects.
Any other questions for Richard? This gives us such a great basis for moving forward and what potential the city really has in the parks. The City Council was very appreciative of the report Monday morning, and I have to thank Richard. He did an incredible job.
Thank you.
And also the Urban Conservation Committee, and he came back and made lots of comments for a while.
Absolutely.
But you tweaked it beautifully, and it just turned out to be a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I'll just leave you guys with this is the executive summary from Dr. Rosberg's report. Rather than I'll let you read it now, I'll let you take it home and read your material because there's a lot of really interesting things in there.
At some point, we'll figure the best way to put all that 1,000 pages online and for people to access. It's just too much to print out at a cost, and we'll work with anybody that really needs to have a copy of it too, but we'll put it online somehow, some way, once we get a chance to figure out what the best way is.
Yep. Thank you.
Do I have a motion from the board to receive and file?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
One thing that, maybe if anyone has anything for the good of the board or the community, if you have anything you'd like to announce, you can take that up this time. We are still, for all new members, we are still looking for a new member for the cemetery committee, so any of you who are not serving on a committee or would like to join that, we are looking for someone for the cemetery committee, so keep that in mind.
About the idea of coming to our neighborhood meetings when we talk about park plans, right? If you like. One new initiative I'd like to request some assistance from the board on is quite often we get invited to neighborhood meetings to talk about what they'd like to see in their park. And I think it'd be helpful to have a few of you on call to attend the meeting with us from the perspective of a park board member. Over time, in the next few months, you'll get a really good knowledge 101 on our budget. And it's not that I want you to come there to say that, we can't afford this. I just want you to reemphasize that, that we would love nothing more. It's just tight financing, that you have to get in line, so to speak, and we're going to do our best to juggle all the needs in the city. But I think it helps staff to go there, to have the park board members with us to say that here's the message from us. You can listen to, you can keep us in check, and you can also help the neighborhood understand what we're trying to do with all the limited resources we do have. I don't think we need maybe an official group unless you really wanted to go that way. I just would love to have 2 to 3 of you per time, and we do about 4 of these a year, and they're usually in the evening, and we could do it specific to the area that you're representing from that part of town, but it'd be great to have more help on those meetings. So.
And Carolyn helped us out on Monday night, so thank you for doing that.
Great.
Sure. Is there anything else? Dick?
According to my iPhone, and maybe some of you got it too, but I would like to congratulate Ben on his 6 years with the city of Des Moines. It just popped up on my iPhone, Ben. All over the world that you have now spent 6 years here in Des Moines, having come from Manchester, and I would like to congratulate you on the super job you have done and are doing, and I thought I'd just pass that on.
Thank you, Dick. It's truly a dream job, and I've got a dream team, and I've got a great board to work with. You guys make it all easy, and I don't succeed without any of you, so thank you. Back at you.
Now, when you said it was easy, I want you to say that after the budget hearings.
Yeah.
We've had so many reductions the last year, it's going to be, it is what it is, and we always make the best of it, and we try to do whatever we can. So if the cards were dealt, we'll, with your help and their help, we'll do our best to get through those things.
Dick, thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for the evening.
I will work a week here.
I was reminded tonight.
Never time to go that fast, right, Ben?
Oh.